energy. We want decent work and economic growth, among others. We want to be able to as well reduce inequalities. We want to have sustainable cities and communities, and of course, responsible consumption and production, which would be the means towards achieving all these other sustainable development goals and towards the achievement also of sustainable development goal number 13, which is climate action. There's also, of course, life below water, life on land, that all gear towards protecting the environment. You would note also, if you look in the internet or you follow our advice to look into the Sustainable Development Goals, you would see that the Sustainable Development Goals are blueprints for addressing global challenges such as poverty, inequality, climate change, those that I have mentioned earlier. And this is not just happening in the Philippines, nor just happening in the United Nations. This is happening all over the world, and all countries participating or supporting the Sustainable Development Goals all work hard to achieve these SDGs. In the DTI, we formally launched our campaign to promote SDG 12 in 2019. We learned a lot from other countries on sustainable development, and so we decided to advocate it because DTI has always been promoting green consumerism. So we adopted what we learned from other countries and brought it to the Philippines. Now I have the honor to tell you that we have been um, how do I say it? We are already quite known in the field of sustainable consumption and production, and we are being invited internationally to speak on this topic. As a matter of fact, we made a proposal to the ASEAN Committee on Consumer Protection in 2018 in advocating for sustainable consumption and production, and it was approved. The project that we proposed was approved. This is the creation of the Sustainable Consumption Toolkit, which is going to be the guide for all stakeholders promoting SCP. This is going to be a guide for all educators, the academe, private sector, consumer organizations, the government, the youth, and all those that are interested in promoting this advocacy. We have already officially launched it last June, accepted, of course, by the ASEAN Committee on Consumer Protection and our sponsor, the Japan ASEAN Integration Fund. Um, it's going to be available in the ECCP website soon. I would think it's already up and running. You would see it there, and you can download it so that you can have your own copy. You can also watch the video that we have also proposed to have. It was prepared by a Filipino company preparing graphic videos. So you will see it there and you will learn a lot, and you can use it as well to educate your friends or your family or other people who are interested in promoting and joining our advocacy for sustainable consumption and production. Okay, so what is sustainable consumption? In the Oslo Symposium in 1994, sustainable consumption and production was defined as the use of services and related products which respond to basic needs and bringing a better quality of life for everyone while we minimize the use of natural resources and toxic materials. What does it mean? In a nutshell, sustainable consumption means understanding that the products and services that we consume or that we have or that we whether we buy it or it was given to us have an environmental impact. Anything, any consumer behavior, any consumer habit that we have always has an environmental impact. What does it mean again to having an environmental impact? It creates an impact or an effect on the environment, whether it's land, water, or air. Anything, any consumption behavior that we do, the use of single plastic, for example, buying a piece of buying a drink with a plastic straw in a plastic cup has an environmental impact. What is the impact? It is the plastic that is not biodegradable that goes into the land, whether it's a landfill or directly into the ocean, will have an impact on our environment. 1 million plastic drinking bottles are bought every minute worldwide. Can you believe that? And there are 5 trillion single use plastic bags discarded yearly. In a market study for the Philippines, it's called Plastic Circularity Opportunities and Barriers. The Philippines generates 2.7 million tons of plastic waste every year. It has an estimated 20% of the total 2.7 million that ends up in the ocean. We all know that plastic takes years to degrade, and then some plastics only break down into tiny pieces, which are eaten by the fish, which are eaten by the sea creatures that we also use for our livelihood, or for to nourish our bodies. So that is the effect of the plastic that we use gets thrown into the water. And we all understand, I'm sure everybody here understands, that it has a long term negative consequence for the environment, whether it's on land, air, or sea. We call on you, the young green consumers, who we know can make a very special difference by adopting sustainable practices, starting at home by repurposing probably your old clothing and recycling plastic bottles. What can we do? How can we do it simply? I would probably, we would probably have here 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds, young people, very young people, and they probably ask how they can contribute. An example would be, which I always see on Instagram. Yes, I am a millennial. I do Instagram a lot. So I would see videos, I would watch videos, and you will find there um, upcycling old denim pants by making them into bags, by making them into an apron that you can use in the kitchen, that making them probably just cutting the pants and making them into shorts. You can turn it into a lot of other purposes. A plastic bottle may still be used for instead of discarding it, may still be used to water your plants. Small plastic bottles where you plant, where you use to water the plants regularly, but in very small portions. Okay, I spoke about plants. We can always all be plantitas as well. We can all have small gardens, maybe pocket gardens in in our homes if we do not have the space. And these plants, of course, will help make our environment better, the air better, the air that we breathe, because um, plants take in the carbon dioxide that we breathe out and give us the oxygen that we breathe in. So these are just some very simple examples of how we can contribute to sustainable consumption and production. Bags that are discarded because they are old or cannot be used anymore can still be recycled into smaller parts like wallets or keychains or key holders or what have you. They can also be turned into pencil cases or other materials that we can still use. So that is called upcycling, or maybe you can also recycle, or maybe you can still extend the life of the products that you have at home. As a staunch advocate of sustainable consumption, I also personally practice it, but I understand that I am not 100% practicing it, because a lot of times you forget, or a lot of times you mindlessly just purchase anything that's made of plastic, and then before you realize it, it's already in your hand. But I try as much as I can to practice sustainable consumption and production. One very important thing that I do is that I carry a tumbler, a water jug, a water container. I know it's heavy and it's inconvenient to carry around, but I do it instead of using or drinking from plastic bottles or buying the plastic bottled mineral water in retail stores. I have twin daughters. They are probably as young as you. They are 20 years old, and they are very conscious as well. Even in their younger years, when they were 15 or 16, they have already been conscious about the use of single-use plastic. This probably was taught to them in school, and they would refuse to take home food that is left over in restaurants. They would rather just finish everything instead of having them taken home and packed in plastic containers. Yes, there are reusable plastic containers, that like the microwavable plastic containers, but these are the type that have a shorter a shorter lifetime. probably can be used maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times, and that is the maximum. And they also break, and these are the kind that turn into microchips that end up in the ocean. So I try as much as possible to avoid using that as well. I am pleased also, like I have informed you earlier, to mention the ASEAN Committee on Consumer Protection Sustainable Consumption Toolkit. Our organizer here, the Consumer Policy and Advocacy Bureau, can inform you when it is already available in our in the ACCP website. Um, in closing, I would just like to stress to all of you the significance of our efforts, such as changing or maybe altering a little bit or maybe improving our consumption habits so that we can reduce the use of single use plastic. I urge all of you young people, those who are here, to be sustainable champions and help us save the planet. Join us in our advocacy, be with us, because we are preserving not only the planet of today for ourselves, but for the future generations as well. Young people like you will still have a long time to spend on this planet. You will still have a lot of joys and experiences in the environment in on planet Earth before before you have children and before you have grandchildren. And I hope you also keep in mind that these are the people that we are saving the planet for. These are the people that we are preserving what we have now so that they can enjoy it as well in future generations. We can all start persuading our family members to join us in our advocacy. Young people, I understand, can be very persistent, like my own daughters are. So you can persist in your advocacy in your own family so that they can also adopt green ways. And then most likely, they will eventually adopt the sustainable consumption and production mindset that we are trying to advocate here. In your communities, you can do this as well. I mentioned earlier becoming a plantita. In your own little ways, you can contribute a lot to our advocacy on preserving the planet for future generations. Becoming a plantita, making your community green can can begin in your own home. You can have your own plants. You can even invite everyone or maybe your friends to join you in your gardening activities, or in at least in choosing small plants in other gardens, or in gardens that sell these plants. I hope we all also remember that we are all accountable for sustaining and preserving the world that we have now. It is us, it is our activities, it is our attitude, it is our behavior that creates the damage that we are causing to the environment. And I hope that from now on, from here on, we will be conscientious of how we consume products and services. We can be, hopefully, beginning today, we can be thankful of what we have, of the blessings from the environment. Imagine our parents, maybe some of your parents here, who earn their livelihood through the environment, probably by fishing or farming or other activities that obtain products directly from the environment or from nature. So, what do we do with that? We need to be able to preserve the blessings of the planet. We need to be able to conserve what we get from the planet, because otherwise we will lose our own livelihood. And I hope that we all begin with ourselves. So again, I'd like to thank all of you for being here, and I'd like to welcome you to the sixth Consumer Youth e-forum that we are hosting for this morning. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat, and I hope that you learn a lot from here. And I hope that before the end of this forum, we have already decided to join the advocacy on sustainable consumption and production so that we can preserve the planet for the benefit of our future generations. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay kayo lahat. Sarah?
Thank you for that inspiring opening remarks, Assistant Secretary Cabochan. And thank you also to our Undersecretary, Ruth B. Castelo, for that moving message. We are very fortunate to receive a message from the United Nations Development Program Philippines, Resident Representative Dr. Selva Ramchandran. Let's all watch this.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to be with you all to celebrate World Consumer Rights Day. I would like to acknowledge and thank everyone from the Department of Trade and Industry, Consumer Protection Group, for inviting me to this e-forum. According to the UN Population Division, the human population will be around 9.5 billion by 2050. This population will require a great efforts to sustain as countries face challenges in decoupling economic growth from resource use. In addition, a global footprint network study reveals that we will need renewable resources from 3 Earths by 2050 with the current and rising demand for resources. In the Philippines alone, based on local studies, food waste is 1.717 metric tons each day. Only 24% of energy comes from renewable sources, and 3 million lack access to safe water. Studies also show that COVID-19 pandemic aggravated the global pollution crisis, mainly plastic pollution. The rise in medical waste and single-use plastic from e-commerce activities were observed. According to the United Nations Center for Regional Development report, only 14% to 18% of plastics are recycled. 24% are incinerated, gasified, and the remainder is disposed of landfills, in landfills, or the natural environment. Moreover, developing countries in Asia and the Pacific region produce vast amounts of uncollected plastic waste. A report by the UN Food and Agricultural Organization states that if we are cautious about the food wasted, 2.1 billion people can be fed. If all of us make mindful decisions, we can combat the misuse of food, water, and energy, which can inspire other people to do the same. SDG 12 ensures sustainable consumption and production patterns, require all stakeholders to come together to take responsibility and reshape how we use resources. This includes regulating the use of natural resources, cutting food waste, improving the management of hazardous substances, and adapting sustainable practice from large to micro enterprises. The UN recognizes that responsible consumption and production as one of the most cost-effective and efficient strategies to accomplish economic growth, mitigate environmental consequences, and enhance human well-being. Achieving SDG 12 will also directly or indirectly make a substantial contribution to nearly all of the other SDGs. It should be regarded as an enabler for implementing other SDGs like SDG 2, Zero Hunger, SDG 4, Quality Education, SDG 8, Decent Work and Economic Growth, and SDG 13, Climate Action. This Youth e-forum is timely and significant as it provides us with the venue to discover and prioritize solutions that enable more people to use resources mindfully by working together and championing sustainable lifestyles. Young people have a strong voice in advocating for change, and young entrepreneurs are creating new pathways in areas that need more attention and action like climate, agriculture, decent work, and education. A 2021 Youth Co-Lab survey on young social entrepreneurs in Asia-Pacific region revealed that 68% of youth were agile by pivoting their products, services, and processes to address the bottlenecks made by the pandemic crisis while supporting the recovery of communities they serve. This is why, through years, UNDP has supported startups involving young entrepreneurs whose innovation impeccably contributes to SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, and other related SDGs. I would like to take this opportunity to share with you some of the impressive innovations that we encountered thus far. 1. Phoenix, UNDP's Hack Society 2017 winner from the Philippines, and Liberty Society, our Human Mobility Innovation Challenge winner from Indonesia, have created business that transform waste into fashionable clothing, footwear, and bags. They combat the issue of buying habits of consumers that have been increasing with the 62 million tons of clothing used every year worldwide. Only 20% becomes reused or recycled. In the Philippines, 29% of the Filipinos discard clothing after a single use. Our recent winner from the Youth Social Innovation Lab, Back to Black, developed a solution of converting used black plastic into highly durable construction material like tiles. They counter the 367 million metric tons of plastic created annually and forward a way to mitigate plastic pollution in the country. Apart from these efforts, we recognize government's active engagement with the youth. The Department of Trade and Industry, Bureau of SME Development is leading public and private partners in developing the entrepreneurial skills of young Filipinos through the Youth Entrepreneurship Program, CYeF. The CYeF gives an opportunity to Filipinos aged 18 to 30 with interventions such as skills training, mentoring, and access to the market to develop mastery in entrepreneurship for young entrepreneurs. UNDP commits to continuously provide avenues for youth to take part in shaping the world and recognize your leadership, innovation, and entrepreneurial capacities. I encourage our youth participants to join our year-end or year-round activities that celebrate the talent and power of youth. 1. The World We Want Philippines 2022 activity to celebrate International Youth Day in August. 2. The Youth Social Innovation Lab, where you can gain more knowledge and capacities on how to create solutions to your community's most pressing challenges through sustainable work. 3. The Springboard program, where young entrepreneurs are further supported through training and mentoring that allow their solutions to be produced responsibly at an early stage. 4. The Movers program is a regional movement of youth volunteers who teach fellow youth about SDG and the promotion of responsible consumption, especially through topics on climate action, life below water, and biodiversity workshops. And number 5, the Youth Empowerment in Climate Action Platform, or YCAP, a space for young people to be introduced to a path on green jobs and bridging them to have access to green jobs in the region. Let me reiterate my message during Earth Day 2022, calling on everyone to invest in nature and that our everyday decisions such as minimizing the use of plastics and reducing the volume of our wardrobe and the frequency can make a difference. Let's shift toward a greener lifestyle. We can do it through the 5 R's. Refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and then recycle. We can start in our homes, schools, workplaces, and businesses. Our individual contribution can make a difference and contribute towards achieving SDG 12. We can do more even with less, and we need everyone on board, working together to secure a sustainable future. I am hopeful that the 6th Consumer Youthe Forum, you will be able to bring home inspiration from young people who are eager to create positive impact and use that inspiration to create your stories of change. I wish you all a productive and fruitful event. Congratulations to everyone. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you for your heartwarming message, Dr. Ramachandran. And before we proceed with the forum proper, may we request everyone to please turn on your camera for a photo opportunity with the CYeF technical team will facilitate. Please hold your smiles, everyone. This is 6 pages. Kindly hold your smiles. Second page. Third page. Fourth. Fifth. And last page. So thank you for your cooperation. We will now proceed with the forum proper. We are excited to share with you the 3 capable presenters are joining us for today's forum. We would like to remind everyone to reserve their questions for the question and answer portion. We will opening the floor for questions after the presentation of our last speaker. So to start off, our first presentation is on the Philippine Action Plan for Sustainable Consumption and Production, or PAP for SAP. Our first speaker joined the government right after graduation and has been a public servant ever since. She earned her undergraduate degree, Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences at the University of the Philippines, Manila. She earned her Master's of Public Administration at the UP National College of Public Administration and Governance and earned a diploma in Development Studies in Mata University in New Zealand. She is the current Director of the National Economic and Development Authority's Agriculture, Natural Resources and Environment Staff, or NEDA ANRES, which acts as oversight for agriculture and fishery sectors and matters pertaining to the environment and natural resources. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Director Nieva T. Natural.
Pleasant afternoon to everyone, and thank you for inviting NEDA in today's event. We are pleased to present to you the Philippine Action Plan for Sustainable Consumption and Production, or in short, PAP for SCP. Given the need to develop a paradigm that will help us continue our path to socioeconomic recovery, it is timely and relevant that we have formulated the PAP for SCP in early 2020, immediately prior to the onset of the pandemic, to support green recovery. The plan was formulated through a multi-stakeholder and participatory process. I will now discuss in the succeeding slides the salient features of the action plan. First, let me talk about the assessment of socioeconomic and environmental context before and during the pandemic. Part of the action plan formulation process was the assessment, which involved taking stock of the socioeconomic and environmental situation prior to the pandemic, including the impacts of the pandemic to ensure its responsiveness to the new normal, existing policies and initiatives on SCP and circular economy, and gaps and opportunities for their replication and scaling up. At the time of assessment, the Philippine economy was actually on track to becoming an upper middle income economy, growing at more than 6% from 2012 to 2019. Also, the 2022 promise of lifting 6 million Filipinos out of poverty was achieved 4 years ahead of time, as poverty rate as a share of the population fell from 23.5% to 16.7% between 2015 and 2018. However, accompanying such economic growth was a declining state of our environment and natural resources, particularly the following. First, there is marine ecosystem degradation. 10 out of 13 fishing grounds are already overfished, and one-third of our coral reefs are destroyed and lost due to reef bleaching, poison or dynamite fishing, water pollution, and irresponsible tourism activities, among others. Second, land degradation. Around 11.13 out of the 30.37 million hectares of our land are degraded due to poor agricultural practices, urban sprawl, and land pollution from industrial waste, among others. Third, air and water pollution. There was a decrease in the proportion of highly urbanized cities that passed the ambient air quality guideline for PM10 and PM2.5 from 47% in 2015 to 32% in 2018. Water quality in priority water bodies also declined and did not fall within water quality guidelines for their intended uses. Compounding these issues is the increasing waste generation in the country. In 2016, we have recorded 40,000 tons of waste, which is equivalent to 0.4 kilos of waste per person per day or 106 swimming pools daily. We waste around 900,000 tons of rice every year. In Metro Manila alone, 2,175 tons of food end up in trash bins daily. Despite this huge amount of food waste, approximately there were 2.1 million Filipino families who experienced involuntary hunger prior to the pandemic, according to the Social Weather Station survey. This is indeed a clear manifestation of unsustainable patterns of production and consumption in the country. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we revisited the PAP for SCP to reflect the socioeconomic and environmental impacts of the health and economic crisis. There was a contraction of our real GDP in 2020 by 9.5% due to the quarantine restrictions and limited private consumption and demand in transport, tourism, and other economic activities. And while our economy has recovered to the pre-pandemic GDP level in the first quarter of 2022, external risks such as the Russia-Ukraine conflict remain high. In terms of the environment, the pandemic provided an opportunity for us to emphasize the importance of our environment and natural resources in our daily lives, a source of our basic needs: food, clean water, and air. During the height of the pandemic, when mobility was restricted, we saw reduction in fossil fuel consumption and decreased pressure in tourist and ecotourism sites. This resulted in the temporary improvement of air and water quality and facilitated recovery of most of our tourism destinations. However, the health protocols imposed and the shift to digital or online platforms resulted in the increased generation of solid and medical waste and surge in electronic waste. Moreover, recycling activities and patrolling activities in wildlife and habitat protection areas were weakened due to mobility restrictions. If not managed properly, waste leakage into the environment will eventually contribute to poorer environmental quality and can further threaten wildlife and habitats. Results of the socioeconomic and environment assessment, which I mentioned in the previous slides, provided the basis for the framework of the PAP for SCP, particularly in providing direction, identifying priorities, and concrete actions to address the identified development challenges and move towards a more sustainable trajectory for the Philippines. The PAP for SCP provides a better foundation to facilitate green recovery as it will influence and steer sustainable behavior and practices across sectors. In particular, It provides for programmatic policy reforms and set of actions over the short 2022 to 2023, medium 2023 to 2030, and long term 2030 to 2040 to upscale and improve the natural resources management as well as build resiliency against health-related diseases and pandemics while helping mitigate climate change. As we can see in the action plan's strategic framework, the vision is to improve living conditions of current and future generations of Filipinos aligned with our ambisyon natin 2040 of a matatag, maginhawa, at panatag na buhay para sa lahat. At the end of 2040, we aim to have more Filipino consumers and producers prefer green goods and services to accelerate the shift towards sustainable and climate-smart practices and lifestyles. To move towards this goal, we pursue the institutionalization of natural capital accounting, determination of ecological limits and negative externalities in our development activities, increasing innovation and investment in the development of green technologies and systems or practices, including circular economy approaches, and establishing sustainable allocation of natural resources and equitable sharing of benefits from these resources. The priority reforms and actions are categorized into 4 nodes: policies and regulations, R&D, innovation and technology, infrastructure, especially sustainable ones, and promotion and education activities. Overall, the PAP for SCP provides a holistic and integrated approach, pursuing the adoption and development of low-carbon and resource-efficient and green technologies, as well as circular economy solutions, to help us shift towards climate-smart practices and lifestyles and sustainable future. The action plan covers all sectors of society and considers the interplay of economic, social, and environmental dimensions as we implement our commitments under the SDGs. Part of the action plan involves the issuance of executive actions by the government. As an overview, let me share some of the key priority executive actions in the PAP for SCP that the government plans to implement, such as to develop and adopt green technologies and circular economy solutions, for example, packaging engineering designed for recycling, urban mining from digital devices, to improve resource use efficiency, and transform waste or residuals into other usable products. Create business models for waste minimization, for example, refilling stations for fast-moving consumer goods such as alternative to buy and dispose or sachet approach, and use of secondary raw materials or recycled materials, for example, paper, plastics, and glass cullets for production. Conduct life cycle analysis to assess environmental impact of products over their life cycle, facilitating the shift to more resource-efficient technologies and processes. Pursue choice editing, for example, regulating single-use plastics and other unsustainable packaging, and choice influencing, such as the establishment of sustainable mobility solutions and active transport. Strategies to steer behavioral change. Complementing the actions I mentioned earlier are the following priority actions geared to ensure evidence-based and effective management of the environment and natural resources, as well as increased preference for green products and services. First, institutionalize natural capital accounting, or NCA, to enable comprehensive measurement and accounting of the value of the country's natural resources and the impacts of economic activities to the environment. Second, set up ICT infrastructure and use green informatics, including Internet of Things to process remotely sensed and lab-based environmental data and statistics. For example, satellite or aircraft-based sensors for NCA and real-time estimation of pollution or damages. Third, conduct of carrying capacity and assimilating capacity assessments to determine ecological limits towards sustainable use and management of natural resources. Fourth, adopt spatial approach in development planning and implement appropriate zoning to ensure more prudent use of land and natural resources and optimize economic, social, and environmental benefits. Fifth, strengthen eco-labeling program and other green certification schemes. For example, organic or sustainable agriculture and fisheries, green hotels or resorts, for example, Anahaw, green buildings, for example, Verde, and green jobs. The action plan likewise identifies key legislative reforms to support implementation of executive actions. Among these include food waste management policy to address the country's growing food waste problem by adopting a system to promote, facilitate, and ensure the reduction of food waste through redistribution and recycling, and establishment of community composting, similar to food banks or pantry concept in the US. Electronic waste management policy, which aims to address increasing electronic waste by institutionalizing mechanisms and guidelines or standards for proper collection, handling or storage, and disposal of electronic waste. Third is Extended Producer Responsibility Policy, or EPR, which aims to enhance product stewardship among producers or manufacturers by making them responsible for the disposal and treatment of post-consumer products. The policy measure intends to help minimize pollution at source, especially from packaging materials and the food and beverage sector. In addition to the reforms, the plan also intends to review and amend, as necessary, existing environmental laws such as the following: Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000 or RA 9003 to enhance financial and or technical support for LGUs in setting up appropriate equipment and facilities and services. Second, the Philippine Clean Air Act of 1999 or RA 8749 to establish a network of environmental laboratories and green informatics or ICT network to support real-time monitoring of air quality. Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004 or RA 9275 to include a sunset review of the National Sewerage and Septage Management Program, to establish a network of environmental laboratories and green informatics to support real-time monitoring of water quality. With the actions and strategies in place, how do we plan to move forward? First, we need to pursue green recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and build a better normal by steering sustainable investments to accelerate adoption of green technologies, developing innovative solutions and business models to foster sustainable livelihoods and create green jobs. The most important element to this transition, however, is the need to change unsustainable lifestyles and practices. This needs to start from us and should be done right away. I would also like to share how can we as individuals contribute in the realization of the goal embodied in the PAP4 SEP. There are many ways to practice SEP in order to help not only our environment and natural resources, but also help us save money. I'd also like to share how can we as individuals contribute in the realization of the goal embodied in the PAP4 SCP. First is on the energy conservation. The DOE's E-Power Mo and Save campaign highlights key tips to conserve energy use. For instance, on lighting products, did you know that simple actions such as using 7-watt LED bulbs, turning off the lights when not needed, and using natural lighting when available can result in as much as 50% savings on electricity consumption? For air conditioners, using inverter-type air conditioner instead of the conventional ones can result in significant savings. Setting the thermostat at 25 degrees Celsius results in 3 to 5% savings, and cleaning the air filters and condensers regularly results in 5% savings. Second is on water conservation. The National Water Resources Board advocates for simple and practical ways for conserving water, such as turning the faucet off firmly to prevent leakage, using a glass of water while brushing your teeth, buying new or water-efficient toilet bowls, discarding leftover food before washing the dishes, and using basin when washing dishes, washing clothes at once and not allowing the water in your wash basin to overflow, reusing water from laundry to flush the toilet, clean the car and/or water garden plants, collecting rainwater with pails and basins and storing it for future use. For example, for watering plants and cleaning the house, reporting broken pipelines and illegal water connections to proper authorities, repair or maintenance of pipes. In restaurants, serving water to guests only when they ask for it, and sharing water-saving tips to family, neighbors, and co-workers. Third is on waste management. At the individual and household level, 5 R's zero waste is encouraged. First, refuse. Learn to say no. Say no to single-use plastic and straws. Say no to items that will directly go to the landfills and stay there permanently. Reduce. Do not impulse buy and try to reduce your general consumption. Simplify and utilize multi-use and natural products. Reduce the amount of waste you generate. Reuse. Use sustainable alternatives to disposable products. If things break, fix and repair them instead. Say no to disposables and yes to reusables. Recycle. After refusing, reducing, and reusing, there shouldn't be much left to recycle. Don't throw it, upcycle it. In fact, there are several companies which encourage this, such as H&M, which upcycles thrown fish nets into new sustainable fabric, among others. Rot. Turn your kitchen scrap into compost and set up your own composting bin. Garbage to garden. This can save you on the cost of traditional fertilizers and pesticides and forgone illness expenses associated with pesticide exposure. These are just some of the basic behavior and lifestyle changes we can all practice if we want to be part of the solution to sustain people, planet, and prosperity, not just for the present generation, but also for the next generations to come. It is indeed our collective responsibility, the public and private sector, the academe, the youth, civil society, to operationalize the PAP for SCP and achieve its outcomes and goal and build a sustainable future together. For more information about the PAP for SCP, please scan the QR code on the screen or visit the website link shown in your screen. That ends my presentation. Thank you once again and good day to all.
Thank you, Director Natural, for that very informative presentation. Neda will join our panel in the question and answer activity later in the forum. So please hold on to your queries and and clarifications. We suggest that you jot down them so you can easily retrieve, or you can send them to our Zoom and Facebook chat boxes. So good morning po ulit sa ating more than 300 participants. Our next presentation is on zero waste. What, why, and how. Our speaker is from Fulfill Zero Waste, a zero waste store with a mission to fulfill people's basic needs by creating a venue where consumers and suppliers will meet to preserve and protect our planet. Our second speaker is the co-owner of the Fulfill Zero Waste, the first zero waste store in the province of Bulacan, which was established last 23rd of September 2021. Their store aims to create a venue where consumers and suppliers meet to start and to try the zero waste lifestyle. He is a graduate of Bachelor's of Science in Industrial Engineering in Colegio de San Juan de Letran, where he harnessed his foundations in operations and business management to make zero waste store possible here in the Philippines. He and his business partner and real life partner, Charlene Maydana, met in Colegio de San Juan de Letran when they were both working students and active members of a community volunteer organizations where they share their interest in helping other people and the environment. To discuss about zero waste lifestyle, let's all welcome Mr. Gian Pierre Arguelles. A virtual round of applause, please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Gian Pierre Arguelles, co-owner of the Fulfill Zero Waste, and I am here to talk about zero waste lifestyle and the three important questions: what, why, and how. So I think the presentation is not ready yet. So I'll just start. First, I wanted to start.
Sir Jean, would you like us to share for your presentation?
Sorry, I thought it was. Please wait for a moment. Yeah. Sorry, can we chat? Can we go to the presentation? Sorry for the delay. Hello. And sorry, I'll just introduce again.
Is it okay now?
Okay na chat. Thank you so much. Hello, my name is Gian Pierre Arguelles, and thank you for inviting us, Fulfill Zero Waste. This is a 6th Consumer Youthe forum. And next slide, please. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
And loud and clear.
Hello, yes.
Thank you so much. I wanted to start with what is zero waste because I wanted to align everyone muna kung ano yung understanding in terms of zero waste. And di ba kapag sasabihin mong zero waste, it seems impossible kasi we live in a society na we just throw away things, and kapag sinabi nating basta tinapon natin sa mga basurahan, we believe nung bata tayo na it will tama yung ginagawa natin. So, next slide please. So what is zero waste? So by definition from United States Environmental Protection Agency, zero waste is a way of life that promotes the goal of reducing the amount of material that we throw away. So basically, next slide, please. Way of life. It is a commitment. It is a lifestyle. So, commitment of what you asked me. Commitment of change. Ganun ko siya gustong i-term kasi commitment of change of what we are currently doing. Currently, gusto namin tawagin itong throwaway system. Currently, we are living sa throwaway system, and yung generation natin nabuhay na ganito yung normal. So, kapag sinabi ng throwaway system, if you want water, you buy in a retail store, consume it, throw away. If you want laundry detergents, punta ka sa grocery store, buy, consume, throw away the packaging. So, lumaki tayo na it is the normal, or ito yung kinalakihan nating tawag nito, kinalakihan nating lifestyle. And next slide, please. And dahil yun yung kinalakihan nating lifestyle, yung zero waste change is, we understand na it's very intimidating. Makikita mo yung mga zero waste sa social media na they're buying cute straws, they're buying this tumblers, they're buying kumbaga parang it's very intimidating kasi parang ang dami mong kailangan baguhin sa buhay mo, which is yes, oo. But zero waste for me is the ideal.